Welcome into the Odds and Audibles podcast, Sunday Crazy a Day edition. I'm Matt Preem, Eric Scopel, Jared Mack on the show. And boy, guys, we knew this weekend would be interesting. We knew this weekend would have some fireworks. It's been everything. It's been crazy. It's been wild. And yet nothing has happened besides Oregon being invited to the Valero Alamo Bowl in San Antonio on December 29th. Jared had the story ready to go because we knew that's where they were going pretty much, playing the Oklahoma Sooners. But we need to start with Mario Cristobal. Leading up to the Pac-12 championship game in Las Vegas on Friday, there were reports that this was trending to Miami. Sunday morning, coming from some people in the Miami market, it was all but done, all but assured, but done. We've since been able to confirm that Cristobal is yet still coaching for the Ducks. He hasn't accepted the job. He's out in homes of players that he's recruiting, that he has committed to this program. This day is beyond bonkers. And I think I honestly – I don't know if the longer this plays out, if it's good for Oregon, if it's bad for Oregon. This has been a total masterclass of pure chaos in a coaching search for Miami, and it's impacting Oregon tremendously.
It's just been chaos for everything.
Yeah.
Like every part of this is chaotic right now. There is no clarity on anything almost, other than, as you said, Oregon will play Oklahoma on December 29th in the Alamo Bowl. A matchup that again, I think I posted this on Twitter. You told me before the season, I would have been like, maybe that's a college football playoff game. Now we're talking about it as a total afterthought, where both of these teams are struggling down the stretch. Both of these teams might have new head coaches. Both of these teams probably could, in theory, have interim head coaches for that game. It is so crazy what we're dealing with right now. It's bizarre in part because we had, I don't know, Matt. Like let's maybe start here, but just the bizarre nature of this. "Quote unquote," it's not even a press conference. I don't even think it was framed that way. Usually there would be a press conference on Sunday after you announce your bowl matchup. Today it was basically an acceptance of the invitation. No media members were allowed to ask questions. We sat and watched quietly in the corner, basically. Like that. And Mario, you can kind of take this away because I missed parts of it, but nothing changed at all. He didn't say anything at all during what would amounted to probably 3 or 4 minutes that really puts anyone's mind at ease, whether you're an Oregon fan, whether you're a Miami fan, whether you're covering either of these schools. No hand was tipped here. And we're recording this at about 2:30 on Sunday, shortly after that. Fully aware of the possibility that while we're recording this, news could break one way or the other. And that just sort of speaks to the chaotic nature of this. Like Matt and I think we both woke up about the same time, about 8:15, to messages about a tweet that popped up from a couple of different, it was 2 or 3 different Miami reporters over the course of about 5-10 minutes there, suggesting it was pretty much a done deal. And now 6 hours later, no deal has been signed. Another report is saying there has been a deadline placed on Mario Cristobal for sometime on Monday to make a decision. I mean, this is just absolutely absurd. And by the way, Manny Diaz is still hired at Miami and still reportedly recruiting at Miami. So I don't even know where to go with this because my mind is racing trying to even kind of parse through all the details. And I'm sure I'm forgetting 2 or 3 key components to this that also add, kind of nuance to this whole thing. I'll be honest, like we've done this for a while, Matt. This is about one of the weirder days I've been a part of covering this program. Probably up there with maybe the Willie Taggart.
This has been a shit show, to be honest. More so from the Miami perspective. Miami has, according to Ross Dillinger of Sports Illustrated, has communicated reportedly to Mario Cristobal that he has a deadline to accept the Miami job offer on Monday at noon. Is that noon Pacific? Is that noon Eastern? Is that noon Central Time? Is it noon in Mali? But noon, and it's for a position that's not even open. And yet Mario Cristobal gave us flack for a narrative in Las Vegas when he was asked about it. Jared, your thoughts on just at some point Oregon's got to be like stepping up and saying, "Hey, we need to know one way or the other because if you leave, we need to act." Like they've got to go.
Well, yeah, they do have to go, obviously, but I don't know. I wouldn't try to push Mario into a decision or not. I let him take his time. If you're Oregon, who's a better coach for your program except for Mario?
True.
And
Agreed.
that's some of the narrative that we've seen on duckterror.com or on Twitter, just like, oh, let Mario go. We don't need him. What are you people thinking? This is ridiculous. Mario has turned this program around and has turned them into a contender. I went through the roster today, and Oregon had 14 season-ending injuries this year. 14, either before the season or during the season. They still finished 10-3. This is a great coach. And if you're Oregon, who else are you going to hire? And this deadline, I think, to me, is quite telling that Miami has. I think the initial report, which came out on Friday, heading up to the Pac-12 championship game, was that they expected this to be done on Sunday. With both Miami expected both the head coach to be hired and their new athletic director to be hired. So far, they're 0 for 2, and they've placed a deadline on the head coach candidacy with Cristobal. And that same Ross Dellinger report from Sports Illustrated said that if Mario doesn't accept the position, Manny Diaz is just going to be retained, which also is an unbelievable narrative in this story too, because Manny Diaz has just been dragged through the mud this entire time.
Why would you just not get up and leave?
Right, just as a lame duck, the Ed Orgeron effect. So I don't know what he's doing. There was another report that they would retain Manny Diaz if Cristobal is hired and make him their defensive coordinator. Again, Manny, dude, leave. They don't want you. It's very clear. They'll pay you a lot, but it's not worth it. This has been a cluster. We'll stop that cluster there. But it's been a hell of a ride. It's been a lot of fun, like very secretly. There's just been so many conflicting reports, and just trying to see what to be real, what to be fake. Eric, like you were saying, we all kind of woke up and there were like 3 reports that Mario Cristobal was becoming the new head coach of Miami. None of those have happened yet. There's still a very good chance he does go. There's still a very good chance that he comes back to Oregon. He's still out visiting recruits, which I know a lot of people are going to be upset about that, because if he's leaving, then why is he? This is his job. Until he accepts that job with Miami, he has to recruit for Oregon because he's still the head football coach at the University of Oregon. So that's something to understand. I understand that all of Oregon fans and that people around the country can be hurt by this because their coach goes out and sees a player and then is like, oh, well, see you guys. Sorry about that. Yeah. I get it. That's still their job. At that time, they're still the head football coach of whatever university. I know Brian Kelly caught a lot of flack for that. I will say, on a general sense, when you're a coach and you're switching from high major to high major, like Lincoln Riley, like Brian Kelly, potentially like Mario Cristobal, the idea that you can do this a right way is 100% false.
Yeah.
Someone is going to have a problem with how you do it.
Yeah. Good point.
And I think what Mario's doing isn't bad. Yeah, he's not coming out and reassuring fans, but why should he? If he comes out and reassures fans and then Miami says, here, Mario, here's 10 years, $130 million, Mario's going to leave, as he should, because everybody would leave in that situation. So if he comes out and reassures fans that, oh, you don't need to worry, Rob Mullins, Phil Knight, we're taking care of me, and then he leaves, it's just going to look bad on him even more. And he's going to see recruits. Could you imagine if Mario stayed the head coach at Oregon and just never visited recruits the last weekend? How would that look? So I think everybody in this situation, something's going to happen, and this whole issue will resolve itself over time. And that's the issue, though, is that today has been the slowest day in the last couple of months for a lot of people who are, like for us in the industry, just constantly checking, just looking for updates, and for fans at the same time, because they want to know. It'll happen eventually. Either way, it's going to be another cluster, whether Mario stays or leaves.
This is playing out in real time. After the Vegas Bowl, Mario Cristobal saw on Saturday Cyrus Moss, the 4-star defensive end edge player out of the Las Vegas area. He then later flew to Salt Lake City to check in on Oregon commit defensive tackle Ben Roberts. So he was in the Salt Lake City area, And then Sunday, Mario Cristobal flew to Southern California, and we know he's checking in on his 3 verbal commitments in San Diego: Grayson Halton, who's a defensive lineman, and then Jaleel Tucker and Jaleel Florence, who are 4-star cornerbacks. And he's also expected to check in Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening with 4-star Oregon commit, near 5-star receiver, Territoria McMillan, among other players that he will be seeing in the Southern California area. And he's doing this not alone. He's doing it. We know Joe Salavea has made some of these visits. We know Ken Wilson has made some of these visits. I believe DeRuiter has also been involved in a couple of them. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. We know that the team had a bowl meeting at 2:00 on Sunday. That was as Mario Cristobal was giving his press conference, if we even want to call it that, with Bob Stoops and the Valero Alamo Bowl people. This is, I think Eric has brought this up a couple times on the show. This is a very fluid deal, and it might be a case where by the time you listen to this Sunday night, Mario Cristobal is gone, or Mario Cristobal could be here and confirmed to be here at Oregon. But we still have a game to cover. We still have a game to follow and to prepare for, and that is the Pac-12 Oregon Ducks facing off against the Big 12 Oklahoma Sooners. And it's one in which there's a lot of intrigue in a normal year. And this one, it's what kind of team does Oregon send? What's their mindset going to be like?
It's that case for both these teams, which is the kind of bizarre part. Oklahoma knows who its interim head coach is. It'll be Bob Stoops, a legendary coach. Oregon, I think we expect it to either be Mario Cristobal or probably Tim DeRuiter. Yeah. I mean, I would imagine Tim's probably elevated to the interim, considering he has head coaching experience, which with Joe Moorhead now taking the Akron job would make him the only coach with head coaching experience aside from Bobby Williams. But I would imagine DeRuiter is more he's been a head coach more recently, put it that way. And has higher responsibility with the team right now. So I would imagine that would be the way they go. But both these teams are limping to the end of the season here. You think about where they were ranked collectively in the college football playoff rankings coming up until the last couple of weeks. Oklahoma was 9-0. They lost 2 of their last 3 games to the teams that play in the Big 12 championship game, Oklahoma State and Baylor. Oregon lost 2 of 3 games after being ranked 3rd in the college football playoff not that long ago to Utah, both in devastating fashion. These are both 2 teams that, again, as I said earlier, you think Oregon and Oklahoma, 2 premier programs, 2 kind of blue blood programs facing off in a bowl game. You think that would kind of move some eyes. And I think right now for both fan bases, they're just kind of collectively going like, what's next? What's going on with this program? I think this game will be very much overlooked for a variety of reasons, even up until and probably through the game itself. I mean, obviously the outcome matters to some people. Will watch this game. We will cover this game like it's any other bowl game. But I think we all sort of understand that the game, again, is sort of secondary, like what we talked about after the Pac-12 championship a couple of days ago, where the future of Oregon's football program is really dependent upon a lot of things that don't take place on the football field. And it's sort of hard to really want to focus too much upon this matchup, but I think we have to. So let's sort of dive into some of it. Oklahoma is a team that is still really, really good offensively. They were first in the Big 12 in scoring, first in total offense, first in passing offense. This is a team that, again, has 5 stars all over the field, has at one point in the season looked like they had 2 potential early NFL draft picks at quarterback, and Spencer Rattler, who's, by the way, in the portal and considering Oregon, it sounds like. And then Caleb Williams, the all-everything freshman 5-star that finished the year as the quarterback. The Sooner team is really talented. And the Sooner team, unlike Oregon, at least played its top teams in the conference close, right? Oregon got blasted by Utah both games. You go look at the way Oklahoma State and Baylor played Oklahoma. Not like those games necessarily decided on the final possession, but those are fairly competitive games.
Right.
Sooners ranked 16th, Oregon ranked 14th. This matchup, I anticipate, is going to be one who has more motivation, like which team really wants this game. And there's reason to believe both programs and both teams, I don't want to say aren't motivated, but have so many moving parts and so many distractions that you kind of wonder where everyone's head's going to be out. head's going to be at. And we know, I think we're pretty confident Kayvon Thibodeau won't be playing in this game. Matt and I discussed earlier that it's possible we see a couple other players maybe opt out. There are so many moving parts right now that a preview of this game is kind of hard to do, other than to just say both these teams are pretty darn good offensively, have some questions on defense. Oklahoma is a team that, when it is playing at its best, is about as dynamic as any in the country offensively, but it has got, quarterback play, the up and down nature of that kind of got in the way at times this season. I don't know, Jared, what other things stand out to you when you look at Oregon, Oklahoma?
Well, I think the main narrative storyline for me is how both programs could be in such dismay in 2 weeks.
Right.
Oklahoma is already in the middle of theirs with Lincoln Riley going to USC. The reports are that they just hired Clemson's defensive coordinator, whose name is slipping my brain right now, Brent Venables.
Nailed it.
Thank you. Which would be a great hire. I love Brent. But yeah, you talked about how Spencer Rattler's in the portal. They've lost a couple wide receivers to the portal. Jadon Hazelwood.
I had completely forgotten all of that part.
Yeah, Marvin Mims is in the portal. They've also, obviously the struggles on the recruiting end too. This could be a hilarious game where you go back and you look at the opening day rosters, or opening day, the opening week football game for both of these teams, and you just go down the list and check. Well, this guy's not playing. This guy's not playing. This guy's not playing. So that is going to be the main thing that I'm watching for. Other than how good Caleb Williams is, I love watching him play. I think I've watched him play almost every single game this season. He was unbelievable against Oklahoma State and almost led Oklahoma back into it. But Oklahoma State their defense is really good. It's legit.
Yeah.
But it should be. It's hard to even think about how the game is going to go because that's just not the storyline right now. And
I know. Nobody
knows what Oregon is going to look like in 48 hours, let alone 3 weeks. I'm excited for it though. This is these are two pretty big name programs going at each other. Eric, like your tweet said earlier, it's like if you told me this at the beginning of the year, we'd think it wouldn't be in the Alamo Bowl, but here we are. Both teams losing 2 of the 3 final games. Oklahoma's in a bit of peril right now, and Oregon could soon be there. However, my favorite storyline going into this game is Coach Stoops.
Yeah.
Coach Stoops just said, you guys need a coach? 1 game? Over $200,000 for me? I'm in. And, he's a historic coach. He coached Oklahoma for 18 years. I think I looked this up one time. What a gig. Just 1 game, 6-figure paycheck, all the gear I can have for a week. Sign me up.
Can I ask, what if Mike Bellotti was like, I'll coach this game for Oregon? Would we like that? I would actually kind of love that idea. Obviously, Bellotti has been out of the coaching ranks a lot longer than Bob Stoops, who Lincoln Riley replaced. What was that, in 2015, 14, something like that?
Yeah.
Bellotti hasn't been coaching since 2008, I think. So I guess not that much longer, 5-6 years, something like that, 7 years. But I mean, now we're just kind of getting into kooky talk. But if Mario Cristobal is not going to be here, and you're not going to have obviously whoever you promote or whoever you make the head coach come coach that game, because that's just not realistic. That's not how this works. Right. If there's going to be an interim head coach, I kind of just why not just get freaking wild with it and let's let Mike Bellotti coach it? Why not?
It's so funny. I just think it's one of the funniest things imaginable. It's like, hey, it's like Florida. It's like, hey, Urban, go ahead. You got time for Saturday?
Or Steve Spurrier.
Right. So, but I just had to add some humor into this podcast. So we're a little down.
The Bob Stoops part is awesome. Because he's already a really good coach, and I think he kind of gets he's not afraid to kind of pop some shots, and he took one at Mario Cristobal today, which I was absolutely floored with. As they're exiting the Zoom call, he says, "Hey Mario, all the best to you, buddy," and you can tell it was a genuine comment there. Good to see you, man. And then pops in the last little bit. Good luck on that recruiting trail. So, I mean, I don't think there was any hostility in Bob Stoops. but it was totally he knows what's going on. He's smart enough to see what's playing out, and threw a little bit of a dicey spicy into this one, and I kind of liked it.
He can do whatever he wants.
Exactly.
It's like he's coached for a week. It's awesome. It's like a substitute teacher. Just get the game plan going and call it a day.
Let's end it here. How this has played out. Miami not firing Manny Diaz and pursuing Mario Cristobal to the point where it's reportedly having a deadline for his decision. And Mario has never publicly acknowledged the Miami offer. He has, however, acknowledged that Oregon is preparing a new contract for him. But I think we all know he's trying to decide what to do here. Go to Miami or stay with Oregon. Mm-hmm. Has this how this is all played out? Is he at fault in any of the craziness? And does it change our perception maybe a little bit of him? Because like Jared was saying, I kind of go back to Manny Diaz and just feel bad, like feel sad for the guy, like literally having to do his job while the entire world knows that they aren't firing him because they're trying to hire somebody else, but if they can't hire that person, they're going to just keep him.
Breakups are always going to be messy. Yeah. And if this ends up being a breakup, it's never going to go fantastic for the team that is losing its head coach. That's just the nature of the business. If you're a big school like this and you lose a coach, you're never going to like the way it goes down. And there's not a lot of classy ways to leave a program for another school because obviously what is inferred is that the school you're going to is somehow superior, or the situation is superior to the one that you're currently at. And that's going to hurt those that are at that current spot. And for Mario Cristobal, there's also the added element of family and his mom. And so I don't fault him for if he wants to go back and do that. Yeah. I think the only thing I take like even a small iota of issue with was just how he handled that last press conference. I know we came at him pretty aggressively. I think we had to. I think anybody listening that disagrees is kind of missing the point of what our jobs are in that instance. I didn't think he needed to be so defensive. I understand it's tenuous situations. I think he could have probably addressed things a little bit more amicably. I also understand he doesn't want to give up his leverage in whatever negotiation he's part of, and he can't fully tip his hand one way or the other. So it is sort of a lose-lose for him. I don't think this is playing out anywhere near as badly as the Willie Taggart thing, although it will feel sort of strange if he was the coach on the introductory press conference for the Alamo Bowl and then doesn't coach in the game. Like that sort of rubs me slightly the wrong way, but I also understand clearly he hasn't made a decision, which is why Miami is pressuring him to do so. And why, internally, at least there is a timeline here. So I understand all of those parts. I think it's really complicated, and it's kind of hard for me to really judge his circumstances, knowing that there is so much at play, and it obviously is a tough enough decision that he didn't just jump at this job, right? Like if it was an easy decision, it would have been made already, and the announcement would have been made this morning. He would have signed the paperwork, which is already clearly out there, but he hasn't done that, and I think he's wrestling with it, and that's a human thing that I can relate to. One thing I will say that I also tweeted this out earlier, the recruiting element where you have Manny Diaz recruiting for Miami and Mario Cristobal recruiting for Oregon, I don't really blame either coach because they're trying to do their jobs, like Jared said. I just think it's sort of symptomatic of the problems we have with the schedule right now. I think the early signing period is a really cool idea. I think it stinks that it takes place like 10, 15 days after the carousel really picks up. And then you have all these awkward situations where you have teenagers sitting in living rooms with supposed head coaches of a school who very likely might not be their head coach when they sign. And that stuff rubs me the wrong way for the student athlete because I don't feel like they're getting a straight answer. I don't necessarily, again, point the finger entirely at Mario Cristobal or at Manny Diaz because, like Jared's earlier, it's a valid point. What are they supposed to do? They're trying to recruit up until they sign, up until their situation is finalized in the opposite situation. They have to kind of continue to proceed that way. So it's a long way of me saying, like, I kind of wish he would have handled the press conference slightly differently. And obviously I want him to be retained as Oregon's head football coach. I think he's done a really good job. Obviously, the last couple of games, the last couple of weeks have stung, and I understand fans sort of being frustrated by that because results are obviously the goal of everything, and the results recently haven't been good. But I don't know. I'm not sitting here going, man, Mario Cristobal is a crappy coach and a crappy person, and I'm happy he's leaving. I think he's handled things, a really difficult situation, about as well as you can, when I don't know if there's an outcome that's really going to please everybody regardless of it. That's my perspective, at least.
This whole situation isn't going to change my perception of Mario Cristobal. I think he's done, like I was saying earlier, I think he's done as well as he can in this coaching decision. He's clearly been offered a lot of money by Miami, just off the basic reports that we've seen, something over $8 million a year. I fully expect Oregon's offer, if those details ever come out, if he chooses to go to Miami, to be very similar in value. These are always somewhat monetary value decisions, but this one doesn't feel like that. If Mario ends up going to Miami, that's because it's the same reason that why Willie Taggart left. Like, this is his dream job. This is his situation where he can go back home, be close with his family. All of those more human reasons. And we've talked about the last couple of weeks with Mario's mother being sick, the human element of being a football coach. And this happens to be the human element of being a football coach. When you get to this echelon of coaching prospectus and you're able to go anywhere in the country, I don't think a lot of us would say that I wouldn't go home, or that you wouldn't go home, whatever the case may be. And obviously this is going to be a situation where if Mario chooses to stay at Oregon, Miami people will not be happy. And if Mario chooses to leave, Oregon people will not be happy. That's how it works. This is college football at the end of the day. With how good of a program Oregon has been in the last 20 years, I don't anticipate they'll have trouble trying to find a new head coach. I do feel as if Mario is the best head coach for this team going forward. This is a team that he's built. So this is exactly the program that he wants to, that he had wanted to build, and here it is. And if he does go to Miami, this is that team might look kind of similar to how Oregon plays. But at the end of the day, this is just a personal matter, a personal decision, a business decision for sure. But I think it's important to kind of give a perspective of, if somebody were in Mario's pair of shoes, would you do anything differently? And it's always easy to say, oh, of course I would. Of course I would. If you sit down and really think about it, the same way if you really sit down and think about how Lincoln Riley and Brian Kelly made their decisions, I think a lot of people at the end of the day would come to those same conclusions. And that's just kind of how life works.
I look at this and think, if a week and a half ago you told me Mario Cristobal was going to leave at the end of the season after the Pac-12 championship game, and a day later it would have been announced he's going home, I would have completely understood it, for the human element, like you said, and the emotional element. Totally understanding of it, and it wouldn't be a good situation for Oregon. But part of this is things that he can't control. He can't control the fact that Miami doesn't have an AD in place, and they have multiple boosters who want to be decision makers in this process and are leaking information left and right. And Miami reporters, as they should be, are building stories off of that report, sourcing. So Cristobal can't control any of that aspect of it, but I think the way the last 24 hours have kind of gone, and the uncertainty that Mario Cristobal has left Oregon in, he's done a press conference representing Oregon in a bowl game. He's seeing recruits the day of this, and we don't have any kind of clarity on it. Just, I don't know if feels wrong is the right word. It doesn't feel normal, and it'll be interesting to see how
he's still the head coach of Oregon.
It's true.
He has to do these things. If Miami had a bowl game press conference today, Manny Diaz would still be there.
Yeah, it's true. It just doesn't feel. It just feels strange. It feels awkward.
Sure.
And
I get that.
It's put Oregon in a really weird predicament. And it's going to be interesting to see this play out. I mean, shoot, I've got to get off. I've got to run over to Matthew Knight Arena, and by the time I get over there and upload this podcast,
who knows?
A decision could have been made.
Yeah, that's how I'm operating the rest until I guess that Monday at midday deadline is reached. Is any moment this could happen, and it could happen one way or the other. It could be Mario signing that Oregon extension, which we know exists. I'm not ruling that out. To me, if I'm just being honest, I'm kind of leaning towards that not being the most likely option. I'm sort of readying myself for the possibility, the likelihood he ends up at Miami. Just with how unusual all this has been, feels kind of strange. But I don't think he's finalized his decision is really how I feel. And it's kind of how the reporting on all this stuff has felt is, okay, everything has been kind of set up to take place because the contract negotiation details, according to a couple of different reporters from Miami, like they've already set up the contract. Like they've already determined what this, what the details are. And I don't think he knows what he wants to do yet. And that right there makes this kind of really hard to know what's going to happen. Because obviously, we're sitting here. I know Oregon fans listening want us to give them, we know this is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. I know some out there in the media purport to know. I genuinely think right now, though, he doesn't know what the decision is.
Yep.
And what's going to happen over the next day or so is he's going to have to make a really difficult decision. And I think he's probably torn between what he's building at Oregon right now and with home and mom and familiarity of a place where he's grown up and spent a lot of his life. And all of that makes sense. And unfortunately, if you're an Oregon fan, I think you just have to be ready for the possibility that this December is going to play out a lot differently than we thought it would. Where we expected a couple weeks ago might be college football playoff, and that's what we'll be talking about, and maybe signing a top 8, top 7 class. And instead, we're going to be doing podcasts talking about potentially, okay, what's the head coaching hot board? Which coach makes sense? Do we like a coach that is more offensive oriented or defensive oriented? What kind of an offensive coordinator goes well with that coach? Because that offensive coordinator hire might be made by, or not, well, assuming Mario's gone, will be made by a different head coach with a different ideology and philosophy. We'll be looking at what happens with Oregon signing day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How many guys can they retain? How many guys do they lose? How much is going back to the drawing board? Does Oregon, how much of Oregon's current staff can they keep around to try to retain a lot of those recruits? I mean, these are the kind of conversations that you have to be ready yourself for here, because based upon what Mario Cristobal decides to do, our podcasts, those listening, their conversation with friends and other Duck fans are going to be very different. There's a possibility you're talking about building the Mario Cristobal program heading towards his 5th season in 2022, or you're looking at brand new open horizons, something different. And either way, it's going to be a lot of tough to talk about. And we will be talking about it. We're just going to be prepared to have very different conversations for the duration of this month than I think we had anticipated or possible even a couple days ago.
It's going to be fun.
It's going to be, I'm sure, it's stressful for us. I just imagine being a fan base and the stress that they have as well. It's going to be certainly interesting. Go to duckterritory.com for more coverage of this, more discussion of this. And I should have mentioned this at the beginning, so I apologize. But before we leave, sign up to duckterritory.com. Right now, 50% off an annual membership. We know for certain there's an offensive coordinator search. We've got a hot board up. That could drastically change if the decision by Cristobal is to leave Miami. But I honestly don't know how long this promo is staying up. We know it's there. 50% off an annual membership. It comes out to being under $4.50 a month that you'll be paying for this subscription. So until we do a mailbag on Monday or an emergency podcast from the Cristobal News, whenever that happens, you've been listening to the Odds and Audibles podcast.
Talk to you later, folks.
Peace.